welcome to another awesome video. What's this tape deck you got?
Today we've got the Sanyo S45 stereo cassette deck from 1981. Now what do you think of this thing?
It's pretty good.
It looks nice, right? Well, we'll see in a minute. It looks a lot nicer than it really is on the inside. However, it's a great budget deck with some interesting features. The first feature we're going to talk about today is printed prominently on the front, and that is metal.
Metal.
Excellent!
What was that there for a second?
That was Bill and Ted.
Oh.
I'll show you that in a little bit. So back in the day when I went to the store and shopped for blank tapes, I had basically three choices. Type 1 was the least expensive. We called that normal. Type 2 we called high bias or chrome. It was a little bit nicer sounding than normal, but for the ultimate taping experience and you want to spend the most money, you go with Type 4, metal.
Metal has heavy metal on it.
And sometimes. For me, taping CDs and radio and listening in the car, I mostly just use chrome tape because the jump from normal to chrome was a lot more obvious.
I thought we use digital in modern cars.
Well, yeah. Once CDRs hit, I didn't do that. But anyway, here's a tape, metal tape with metal music from '96. It still sounds pretty good.
We tried to put an 8-track player in our car and then it fell over.
Yeah.
Call up with the tunes you'd like to hear. Brian from Germantown wanted to hear Alice in Chains. Here's I Stay Away, 92.9 MFS.
I wonder if that was trick editing.
No, it wasn't trick editing. You see, back in the day, we couldn't just search for the songs we want to hear on YouTube or Spotify. We had to make these grungy mixtapes off FM radio. So the DJ played songs and you could catch them, you know. And so that's a mixtape from 1996. It's, 25, 26 years old and still sounds pretty good. You may have noticed a switch on there to set the metal tape, the tape type. So if you look at this deck, it's from 1981. Here's one from 1979. You set the tape type with switches. But if we jump forward in a time machine a couple of years, the switch...
Wait, what?
Well, we can't really do that. But anyway, the switches go away. And so on this TAC deck from 1980, I think it was 82, 84.
Editor, play Back to the Future since you mentioned time travel.
Yeah. Anyway, this one has lights on the front to indicate metal tape, but there's no more switches because they're automatically detected through these little holes in the top of the cassette. See here? Now we jump ahead even further to the 1990s. There's no indication.
Terminator was coming out.
Terminator 2.
Terminator 2.
Anyway, so right there, there's metal printed on the VU meter, but very little indication. And then finally, the 2000s. This is a metal supporting deck, has lots of features, but there's no indication of metal anywhere. So metal over the years kind of faded into the background. So although I didn't really think about it when I was using cassettes, when I was setting the tape type, I was actually making two settings, bias and equalization. Sometimes those settings are actually broken out into separate switches, but most of the time they're not. So bias is a current that helps recording and it only applies to recording. So for example, this Radio Shack deck, the SCP-25, which is playback only, has just one button that handles both chrome and metal tape. So back in the 80s and the 90s, the tapes that I called high bias and metal actually had the same equalization but different biases. But anyway, if I said that wrong, I'm sure the internet will violently correct me in the comments, but the whole point of all this stuff is the tape machine changes the way it plays back and records a signal to match the tape formulation to achieve better sound quality on the tape. Now, before we continue with more features, let's talk about repairs. If you're not interested in the repair section, just skip ahead like 3 minutes. As you can see, the belt was melted. That's typical. This thing is 41 years old, so no surprise there, but look at this bottom panel. It's this cheap, like, cardboard paper stuff. This is where this starts to show as a budget deck. I've never seen that type of material used as a structural part of a cassette deck. It's usually, like, just on the back panel. But anyway, repairing the belts was pretty easy. Removing several screws allowed me to access this mounting bracket and remove it. Then I could actually get to the flywheel, remove it, clean the flywheel. Someday I'll remember to wear those blue gloves before I start a project. Anyway, got all the gunk off the motor, replaced the belt, put it all back together, and play worked, but I still had a problem with recording. It was the meter was dead and it wouldn't record anything. But if I blasted the level control, I could actually hear something coming through very faintly. And also if I touched a wire inside, I got a buzz, not personally, but on the meter and the audio. So it seemed like the line input signal was not getting to the preamplifier circuit or whatever. Anyway, the solution was just a dirty switch. There was a line microphone switch at the back. The solution to this problem is actually this switch, this line mic switch. It needs cleaning, watch.
So cleaning off that switch with some cleaner made it so clear. And, just a pro tip, you just don't forget or keep forgetting that when you work on these tape decks that are 40 years old, a good cleaning will solve a lot of problems without even getting to the circuit at all. I mean, these old Japanese electronics from the 80s are really reliable. So there wasn't a lot of information about this particular model online, but Sanyo, in my mind, and in general what I found online, was more of a value brand in the 1980s than, say, Pioneer or Yamaha, which would have had better construction. I would also subtract a few points for these sluggish mechanical soft touch controls. They don't feel very good, and there's this warning on the top: press the stop button before turning the power off when the unit is in the recording or playback mode. Basically that's saying, yeah, our mechanism might get your tape stuck in here if you happen to turn the power off. These aren't electronic controls, they're mechanical. But despite those limitations, I would say that in 2022, this deck has actually gotten better with age and includes a lot of features that have fallen by the wayside. It's got a nice fluorescent display. It's got basic music search. It's got an output level control, which makes it a lot more useful with headphones. One interesting, unique feature that I hadn't seen before is on the cassette door. It's got these little pivot arms on it so that when you get a cassette out of the machine and put it in, it is less of an angle. Just a really nice little touch they added, and you don't really see that elsewhere. Another unique feature you don't see in value decks is the bias adjustment. After you set the tape type, you can use this little knob here to fine tune it to a very specific level. There's actually another version of this deck which attempted to apparently print manufacturer and tape names around the knob to let you know where to set it. So what we're going to do next is actually try to see if we can hear the difference of that setting using FM radio static. So this is normal bias tape. As I turn the knob, the brightness of the static should change. Anyway, that's about it for our review of the Sanyo RD-S45. If you want to view videos about any of the other tape decks we showed in the video, I'll add some links to the video description. And if you're interested in seeing more videos like this, you can support us by liking and subscribing.
If you do that, then someday we might even be able to afford a Nakamichi deck.
Yeah.
See you next time for another awesome video.